can't begin to tell you the joy that this side project, Giving Beyond Belief, has brought to me personally, and I hope to many of you as well. And I know that we are doing real world good to many people with actual issues out there. Still, the Christians have pushed back, and some people that are new to the channel don't understand what this is, so I want to take 1 minute to explain this project. After that, we're going to talk about who we're supporting today, which is Doctors Without Borders. I'm so excited about this organization. They do so much more than I thought they did, and just a little bit of money with them goes a really long way. So we're going to talk about all the good that they do and how we can best support them. Then we're going to talk about where religion fails and thus why we need to step up to the plate. Then we'll cover the results from last month's Giving Beyond Belief episode, which was with RAIN, an amazing organization that fights sexual assault. We'll cover how much we raised there and what I was able to give because of the ad revenue from your guys' amazing support of the channel. So that's our agenda, and quickly I will say that just in 3 months and 3 videos and 3 causes, we as a group together have raised over $10,000, and I think that's amazing. I can't wait to see what the rest of 2025 brings. But I want to talk very quickly again about Giving Beyond Belief. When many of us left religion, we didn't just walk away from belief. We walked away from an entire system that had many aspects to it, one of those being giving. For those of us that used to tithe or used to give an offering, that money went to support churches or pastors or other religious organizations. But as many of us have moved through our deconstruction, we realize we no longer support that. We see the inequity that is going on there. We see the misuse of funds. We see the prioritization of evangelism or even just building their own church bigger instead of actually reaching the needs of your fellow man. And despite what Christians say, we still have morality. We still have empathy. We still have a desire to give and to help when we can. It doesn't just disappear because we no longer believe, and that's why I created Giving Without Belief. It's a way for us as a community to step up and to support real causes that actually make an impact, that are as efficient as they can be with their money because they don't have some other priority that is blocking the way. Help is the priority. So once a month here on this channel, we will take time to learn about a new organization that we can support. We will also take an honest look at where religion falls short on these issues, and we'll provide everyone an opportunity to give in some way. And that's the best part. To make a difference, you don't have to donate, though you do have that option. You'll see it off to the right of your screen. And my hope is that many of you will simply replace what used to be your tithe or offering to the church to the organizations that I highlight to you once a month. But if you cannot help, and no judgment here, just by watching this video, you are helping. You are boosting its ability to reach more people, get more views, and collect more ad revenue, all of which I donate after 1 month to the organization that we have highlighted. So whether you are here simply to learn, to contribute, or to support, thank you, because together we can do something very real here. Okay, with that out of the way, and thank you for humoring me, let's talk about Doctors Without Borders, also known by this French name here. Simply put, DWB is one of the most effective, transparent, and life-saving humanitarian organizations in the world. They provide independent, neutral, and impartial aid to those who really need it. These are people suffering from war, from disease, from famine, and from displacement. Often they are going into the most underserved and dangerous regions. Unlike some, not all, religious organizations that attach conditions or evangelism to their aid, DWB simply goes where the need is highest, treating anyone, anywhere, without discrimination. I love that so much. This is how it should be. So let's highlight a quick list of everything that DWB does. 1. Emergency medical relief. This is probably what they are best known for. They send doctors, nurses, and medical supplies into war zones. This includes Gaza, Ukraine, Yemen, Sudan. But not just war zones, also natural disasters and crisis regions, which would be places where healthcare has simply collapsed. 2. Disease treatment and vaccination. They fight outbreaks of cholera and measles, malaria, Ebola, and many other deadly diseases. These are communities that are often long neglected by their government or the rest of the world. They provide surgical and trauma care. These are life-saving surgeries, emergency procedures, and wound care. They help with maternal and child health, providing safe childbirth assistance, neonatal care, and treatment for malnourished children. Something I didn't know until I was doing my own vetting of them is that they provide mental health support as well. This psychological support is so necessary when you think about the people that they are reaching, the PTSD, the war trauma, the sexual violence and extreme stress in every moment of their life. They are not just getting the physical body met, but also the emotional and psychological. They provide refugee and displacement assistance. That looks like medical care, clean water, shelter, and sanitation to those fleeing, whether it be war, persecution, or famine. Also, something I didn't understand is the effect that they challenge big pharma and stand up and fight against medical injustice. They fight for the right of affordable medicine. They expose medical inequalities, and they push for better global health policies. Two more here, and I kind of covered this next one, but they respond to famine and nutrition. This could be its own entire charity, and yet it is just a part of all the good that DWB does. In places hit by food shortage, they supply what's called RUTF, ready-to-use therapeutic food, to simply keep children alive. And lastly, and just as important, they speak out against injustice. Many organizations remain silent. They just go and they help, but the problem can often persist in general. DWB wants to meet those needs, but they also want to prevent those needs in the first place. So they call out governments and corporations and policies that worsen suffering. Are you convinced yet? I am. And again, I will put my money where my mouth is and of course donate all of the ad revenue that this video makes. I'm almost done bragging on them, by the way. Then I'm going to show you where your money actually goes when it is spent with them. And then we're going to move over to the where religion fails side of the conversation. So quickly, they are 100% independent and neutral. They take no money from religious organizations, no money from government organizations. They cannot be told what to do. They're one of the most transparent organizations in the world. Their finances are fully open to the public. So aside from the third-party charity auditors, anyone can go and just review this information. And again, very importantly, no religious strings attached. And again, you watching this video is already doing a world of good. But if you do want to click that donate button and give, here are some financial amounts and what they do. $10 can provide life-saving vaccines to a child. $25 can supply a child with a full treatment of therapeutic food. $50 can buy medical supplies and antibiotics for emergency surgery. $75 can provide a safe delivery kit for an expecting mother in a conflict zone. $100 sends a doctor directly into a crisis zone to supply care. $150 covers the cost for emergency medical kits for disaster relief efforts. $250 funds an entire week of care for a wounded patient in a combat zone. $500 helps run a mobile clinic. That brings the health care to the displaced person. $1,000 supports an entire surgical team in a field hospital for multiple procedures. And $5,000 is where we'll top out, though we could obviously keep going and showing you the good that this does, will help establish a health center in an emergency affected zone. So I haven't put a goal on any of the other 3 videos, but I'm just going to put a goal of $5,000 for this video. That between yourself and my ad revenue, we can get to that highest amount. So if you can give, please do so. Otherwise, watch this video, like it, comment, watch it all the way through, click the next video afterwards to boost it in the algorithm, and of course, share it if you can. And yes, of course, that helps the channel too. Win-win. Nothing wrong with that, not trying to hide that. So let's move into the second half of the video here, which is where religion fails. And specifically with the goal of this channel, we are going to be talking about the Christian religion. And I have 2 groups of verses that I want to share with you. I want to talk about God's view on suffering and God's view on helping. The same way we would expect Doctors Without Borders to help. What does God think about healing and medical care? I think when we have this as our understanding, we can see just how quickly this religion fails to address real needs for real humans that feel and go through life in ways that we can only imagine. So this first group of verses again is about how God views suffering and or causes suffering. Many Christians will pray for all of these people that are affected by all of these things that DWB takes care of. But why should they expect the God of the Bible, Yahweh, or even his son Jesus to do a darn thing about it when we have verses like this? Exodus 15:3, the Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. The Bible portrays God as a God of war. He is clearly a warlord to this particular Middle Eastern tribe. It is his nature as a war god to go to war, to cause casualties, to cause fallout, to cause harm. You cannot separate yourself by it by claiming New Testament or Jesus. You need to believe that Jesus was there at creation. He and the Father are one. This God is immutable, it is claimed multiple times. You simply cannot erase this from his character. Isaiah 13:15-16, whoever is captured will be thrust through. All who are caught will fall by the sword. Their infants will be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be looted and their wives violated. Almost everything that is mentioned in this verse is something something that Doctors Without Borders is actively working to either prevent or to give relief and help and aid to. Those who have been abused sexually, those who have had the traumatic experience of war, those who have lost children, the collateral damage of war in general, the refugees that are fleeing for their life. But here, this God is taking credit for causing all of those things, for commanding all of those things to occur in the first place. Praying to him for a solution makes absolutely no sense. It would almost be insulting to this God if you really understand his nature. And again, you can say that's Old Testament, but you are being selective in a way that is dishonest and disingenuous to the highest degree. Numbers 31:17-18, now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Commanding genocide, sexual enslavement, forced marriage, captive brides, whatever you want to call it. But unlike the Israelites, do you know what Doctors Without Borders does? They provide help for child soldiers. They provide help for survivors of war. They don't enslave them. They don't rape them. In Deuteronomy 20:16-17, however, in the cities of the nations the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, do not leave alive anything that breathes. Completely destroy them. God wants these humans and their animals dead. He wants their lands desolated because they are an enemy to him, because of a border. But again, Doctors Without Borders are what they sound like, borderless. They want to save everyone. They want to help all people, despite their religion, despite their race, ethnicity, or what side of a river they were born on. Amazing, with just how a little bit of practical, real-world evidence we can see how quickly the God of the Bible fails. But not everything Doctors Without Borders does is helping just because of war. There's also famine and natural disasters and things like this. Here's what God says, Exodus 9:14-15, for this time I will send all my plagues on you, yourself, and on your officials, and on your people, so that you may know there is no one like me in all the earth. God uses these horrendous things not just to get the attention of the rulers who are not listening to him, but even the lay people, the commoners, the collateral damage, because the only thing that matters to Yahweh, the God you pray to for help for these people when disaster strikes, is that they would know him at any cost, and not know him in this lovey-dovey, I've got great plans for you. They would fear him and recognize him as the Lord, the one true God, because God is a jealous God. We know these terrible things come from him, at least biblically speaking. Deuteronomy 28:58-61, if you do not carefully follow all the words of this law, the Lord will bring upon you every disease and plague you can imagine, including the plagues of Egypt, and they will cling to you until you are destroyed. So sickness, plague, famine, etc., natural disasters, they are a punishment from God. God wants the glory for this. He wants the credit. Give it to him. In 2 Samuel 24:15, the Lord sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the time designated, and 70,000 people died. 70,000 innocent people died because of what David's sin had done. And when God gave David the choice to choose between three punishments, he chose the one that would affect the people, not himself. And 70,000 people died for it, and God called that justice. If you really believe that this happened, if you are a Christian believer and you believe this happened, even if you believe there's some new covenant and Jesus is all about love and friendship, if you really believe this, then you almost have to believe that when you see a famine, when you see a hurricane, when you see an earthquake, when you see disease spread, it is God punishing people. We have too many examples in his perfect holy word that shows us his true character and nature, that this is his go-to. This is his MO. You don't get to be a modern day Christian that says, oh no, I understand that these things happen ecologically or politically or economically. There's all kinds of reasons that this happens, but I'm going to pray to my God, a God who loves everyone, to help them. Maybe I'll send some aid through my church. Maybe I'll even go to one of those third-party organizations that's doing well, which I would ask, why are you doing that? Do you not believe your prayers are enough? Do you do both just to hedge your bets? Is your God not powerful enough to actually help? You just can't have this all the ways the modern day Christian wants to have it. Again, give God the credit he demands throughout most of the Old Testament. He is the creator of evil. He hurts on purpose. He sends these things because he wants the suffering to occur. I could give Hundreds of examples. Let's do a few more though. Ezekiel 5:12, a third of your people will die of the plague or perish by famine inside you. A third will fall by the sword outside your walls, and a third will scatter to the winds and pursue with drawn sword. This is God actively spreading plague, famine, and wartime. Again, the three things DWB is trying to fight against. It's almost like if you're a Christian that would support Doctors Without Borders, you're spitting in God's face. It kind of seems that way when you compare his very word to the very mission statement of this charitable organization. In Lamentations 4:9-10, we get an honest admitting here that those killed by the sword are better off than those who die of famine. Racked with hunger, they waste away for lack of food. With their own hands, compassionate women have cooked their own children, who became their food when my people were destroyed. This horrific starvation is a consequence of God's wrath, of his perfect justice and judgment. No, it is a reality of the world we live in, and we need to treat it as such, meaning we as people need to take responsibility for it and help with the aid to alleviate it and prevent it in the first place, instead of continuing to just say, this is God's world, or it's Satan's world. Either one, you immediately deny responsibility when you put it into the supernatural. Doctors Without Borders is taking that responsibility. They are bearing the weight on their shoulders and saying, someone has to do something, because obviously no God is showing up to do this. And if there is a God, it seems pretty clear from his word, he's the one causing it anyways. But let's get to our second group of verses. How does this God feel about sickness and healing? Let's move to the New Testament and see what Jesus and the others thought about these things. Let's start with James 5:14-15. Is anyone among you sick? Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord, and the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. This isn't Old Testament. This isn't just for the Jewish people. You have no excuses to hide behind when this utterly fails, which it does, which even Christians know it does. Yeah, some Christians take this seriously, and they will go and they will be prayed over by elders, or they will even do the anointing oil thing, and they will still go to their doctor. They will still take the prescription. And good, I'm so glad that they do. But the Bible doesn't call for any of that extra stuff. Rely on God. Rely on the church process, the elders, and special oil. The very fact, and you can argue this, but I really think it is this simple, the very fact that Christians reach outside the church for their medical emergencies, and even the mundane ones, I think is just a little clue into how much they know deep down, even subconsciously, their prayers don't work, or that they want to hedge their bets. And yeah, they might convince them that, oh no, God gave us medicine. He gave us the tools and curiosity to learn these things, and we should use them. That's a way to glorify him. And they will stick with that mantra and continue to thank him, and not the doctors, not the medicine, not the scientist, when their child is saved from what otherwise would have been a death sentence under this idea from James and under the God of their Bible. It's so very clear to me, and I've done an entire video here about where faith healing breaks down. I also had a great conversation with Holy Kool-Aid about some of the bigger aspects of faith healing. Mark 16:17-18 says, and these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons, they will speak in new tongues, they will place their hands on sick people, and they will get well. This is the power promised simply to those who believe. Not those in the ministry, not those who went to a special kind of school, not those that the Holy Spirit chooses to grant additional power to, those who believe. Do you believe? And if so, do you believe this verse? The excuses that you have to make for yourself, and I know because I was a Christian for 30 years, when this kind of thing falls so flat on its face, so completely, the dissonance is unbelievable. We get examples of Jesus himself, Matthew 8:16-17. He drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. And yet we are told we should be able to do greater things than he because of the power he left in the world for us via the Holy Spirit. John 9:1-3 I think is telling, and I've spoken about it before, but it fits here in this video too well to ignore. As he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Pause really quick. They asked him this because they knew their Bible. They understood that in the Old Testament, these were the only two reasons that someone would have an illness or have a handicap of any kind. It's because of sin. And did Jesus correct this thinking? Did he say, no, you've misunderstood. You don't understand God's real words here? No, he pretty much accepted, yeah, I understand why you would think that, showing that nobody there actually understood germ theory, for example, or the developmental issues in utero that would cause someone to be born in a certain handicap. But Jesus brings a third reason, one that I think is sicker than the first two if you can believe it, because collective and generational punishment is pretty darn disgusting. For an innocent baby to be born with an ailment, and we can talk about, if I'm using words that are offending anyone in the blind community, I apologize, but back then being blind was an incredible disadvantage in life. It cemented you to a life of begging. It cast you to the outside walls of society. And yet, here's what Jesus says to finish the verse. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, which is crazy because I thought all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So what he's obviously saying is it is not because of their sin that this happened, which is an admission that sin could make this happen, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Jesus wanted this moment of glory where he heals this man, blind from birth. Years and years and years and years of this awful condition for his time and place, for this 30 seconds of God's glory. If you are a believer in Jesus, New Testament, no Old Testament stuff here, you have to believe that Jesus and his Father are purposely making people suffer for their glory. Jesus is bragging about it here. You have no excuse for this. And if you do go back to the Old Testament to understand how God viewed sickness and how to heal these things, you would see something even more ridiculous like Leviticus 14:1-7. Then the priest shall command that 2 living clean birds be taken. 1 bird shall be killed in an earthen vessel. Then he shall sprinkle it 7 times on the one to be cleaned of leprosy. Newsflash. Animal sacrifice does not cure illness. It does not prevent the spread of disease. It actually can cause the spread of disease. I could give you a multitude of verses in the Old Testament and another in the New Testament that show how both Yahweh and Jesus don't understand the reality of sickness, don't understand how to prevent it, and have misattributed its cause and its solution. Both often say that sin is the reason for sickness. Sometimes that sin is so severe it manifests itself in demons. You have been given over to yourself and you were able to be possessed by the devil or his legions that are causing this illness that you have. And you can be cured with an exorcism or some weird blood ritual. This understanding of sickness and illness and disease not only prevented people from addressing the problem sooner, it created many of the problems in the first place, and it still persists to this day. If you do not think that even in your progressive Christian communities, when someone is struggling with a sickness and the medicine's not working, so they throw their hands up and say, oh, now we must turn to God, and they say, it's you. You must have sin. You must be unrepentant, and they will blame the victim here, as if that added stress is going to help anything, for when their faith fails, because they will pray for a miracle, despite the fact that Paul says to die is gain, and that Christians are to view this world as essentially a testing ground to enter into perfection forever. They still cling to life desperately, another bit of dissonance there for what they really claim to believe, and they will pray for their sick to be well. And they're so unsure of this that they will also include medicine, and when both fail, they will go back to the spiritual and blame the victim. If you cannot see the wealth of issues that exist in this kind of a mindset, I don't know how to make it more clear to you. Because the reality is simple. Life isn't fair. There is no God keeping track or score, purposely healing you or causing you to be sick, purposely causing war or famine. These are things that man has done on our own, or that are just natural in our environment or our evolution. And the best we can do is come to that realization as quickly as possible collectively, so that again we can take responsibility for it and move forward. So when we have an organization like Doctors Without Borders that can and does do what this God should have been doing, if he were real and all-powerful and omnibenevolent, we must support them. So that's my call to action for you today, that you would, again, do what you can to help support this video, or click that button right now and donate. I'm going to set that goal of $5,000. I thank you for your attention today. I know I covered a lot of stuff. We as a small community are doing a lot of good. $10,000 so far in the last 3 videos, and this is what I owe you from the last video. Let's go through it really quick and then we'll close out. So last month again, we talked about Yahweh and rape, and we supported Rain, who's doing so much good. You guys donated over $2,500 on that video. Thank you so much. And so far of the 3 videos, this was the the best one in terms of views. Almost 53,000 views. Unfortunately, even with all those views, ad revenue really sucks in January in terms of the CPM. That's fine. It's just a reality. So it only generated $135. My commitment to you guys and to these organizations as part of Giving Beyond Belief is that I will give at least $300 a month, or whatever is higher than that if the ad revenue goes higher. So since we didn't reach 300, I'm still going to give 300. You can see evidence of that here, which brings this video up to $2,854. Thank you again to everyone who gave last month and to everyone who is going to give this month. I'll see you Thursday with a new Thinking Thursday episode, and until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Alexander, Ann, Boris, Eric, GVI, Joe, Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn; my Humanist heroes, James, Jarrod, Kristi, and Thronus; my Atheist advocates, Caleb, David, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Julie, Malcom, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas; as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of the channel or you just enjoy its content, please consider joining these fine people.